Okay. So it's been a long while since I've done one of these. It's been like at least like a month or two, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. How long has it been? Who knows? Anyway, I'm here now because I've got like time open this evening to do this, to spin a tale of spine-tingling terror of an actual series of events that I was personally party to. I experienced these myself. These are not the made-up dog. There's a dog in this house. But yes, no. These are spine-tingling tales of terror that I have experienced with my own two eyes and arms and the rest of me. And these are actually probably like, one of them, technically speaking, isn't like necessarily a spooky story so much. It takes place in a spooky place, but nothing spooky truly ever happened there, methinks. And the other one, the first one, is actually like one of the more bizarre events that I still don't have any sort of good explanation for. It's just like very peculiar that any of this happened at all. So, as I've mentioned in the past here and there on other videos for those that have watched, I used to live out in an area outside of my hometown of Ventura, just at the like beginning of the Ojai Valley, but not quite at the I can't remember what that area was called. There's like, it was towards the end of the avenue, and like and it was just like these like old houses near a street called Cañada Larga. And one night, me and my friend Brandon were driving down this down the road, the freeway, the 33, I think, is that particular freeway that runs up through Ojai and then like scoots up towards Santa Paula. Well, yeah. I had a gimlet earlier, and it was it was all. It was a good gimlet. I mean, it wasn't a gimlet. It was gimlet adjacent, but it left my mouth kind of Anyway, so Brandon and I are driving home one late night. It's quite dark out, and the road that we're on doesn't have a lot of like lights on either side of the road. As we're driving, all of a sudden, just up ahead, maybe about 3-4 car lengths ahead of the car, something gets picked up in the lights, just kind of coming down from the sky, like towards the car. When all of a sudden, it slams this object with like, to me, it looked as though it were like a bat. It was dark, like it was a dark shape that was broad, with a wingspan at least as big across as the front windshield of his like little Japanese pickup truck. We heard it hit the windshield, well, we saw it hit the windshield and then like go over the roof, and then I thought that it might have like landed in the bed of the truck, or at least ended up back behind us on the road, because like it slammed right into the windshield. Not hard enough to like break it, but it definitely glanced off it and like went flying up and over. So the best part was that like Brandon and I immediately started screaming. So like we see this thing on the road like coming towards, then like hit the windshield. We're just like, oh god! And we immediately pull off. Like the next exit is the exit for like his place. We just pull off, get right back on the road, and drive back down, because we want to go and see what the fuck it was. We don't want to get out of the car, mind you, because like we're both just like, what the fuck was that? Like it was so big and dark in its shape, and like I thought it was like we were both like, was that a bat? Like, is it a bat? Like that it was literally the kind of situation where we found ourselves literally saying like, is this the beginning of a movie with vampires? Because it feels like it. Because it definitely had the definite like, it was very strange. But so we race back down the 33 back towards like the main area of Ventura to like turn back around and get back on the freeway and go back up and look for a body, because at that hour not a whole lot of people are going down the freeway, so you know there's a chance that we'll find it. Except that on the way down, we see a man walking on the side of the road, carrying a torch, wearing a robe. Literally, just a man, just walking down the side of the road, like up the freeway towards Ojai, in a robe, with a torch. And on that side of the road is literally just like kind of like a little bit of a ditch, and then like up into a big like earthen mound, which then like drops off on the other side into kind of like a floodplain, and I think like I don't think there was really any farms in that area. It looked like there were, but they were like really, really small. But so it's like, it's basically a floodplain. So we see this dude carrying a torch, just like walking down the road. We're just like, what the fuck was that guy? First we hit a vampire, and now there's that dude. So we get down to like where we make the turnaround, get off the road, turn around, go back up the 33, and there's nothing in the road. Whatever we hit got off the road, took off, didn't like get busted up enough to stop flying, and was not in the road. So we get to Cañada Larga again, get off, turn around, and come back to verify the existence of the dude in the robe. Except this time, on the way down that way, there's no dude with a robe, there's just a torch laying on the side of the road, like up on that like little like mound up and over. Like it's just like laying there, like basically extinguished except for like some embers kind of like going on it. We're just like, now the robe guy's gone. The vampire's gone, the robe guy's gone, there's a torch laying right there. What the fuck happened? So we like turn around, race back, get inside the house, like lock the doors, close all the windows, and just like huddled up in the living room for the rest of the night because what the fuck was happening outside? Nobody knows. I still have no idea what any of that shit was. Cause like, they're like definitely, oh my boy, oh my boy, oh my sweet boy. There are definitely like bats in the greater Ventura area. Brandon accidentally hit one night on the way back to my place, where it was like this just little tiny dude, like so super sad, poor little bat, just up in the front grill. But anyway, look at this dog, look at this good boy. Oh my good boy. I know. But so that's the first, that's the one where like I still like I have no idea what that was. That didn't make any sense because like, you know, as much as I like talk about or oh, you're a good boy. As much as I talk about or like have had like experience that could be considered in some sense like paranormal or like unusual and whatnot, or like just spiritual in some way, that one just doesn't make any sense. Because it's not like there's vampires. It's not like there's like some Rosemary's Baby like cabal of like cultists all like controlling the local government of Ventura or something like that, and one just like forgot his like spooky hearse and needed to, you know, walk to the like meeting out in the woods like oh, my boy, up and away. Good boy. Now I'm all covered in dog hair. But so that one's bizarre. That one's beyond me. I have no good explanation for what the fuck that was all about. So that moves on to the next story. One of the areas that we used to go and visit pretty often was it wasn't an abandoned mental institution. Rather, it was like a former hospital, former asylum mental institution in like kind of like outside of Camarillo, which is north of Ventura. Well, no, east of Ventura. I always call it north because like you'd have to leave Ventura, like kind of like going away, and for some reason, like in my mind, that was like going north because you like went to Camarillo, went to Thousand Oaks, went to LA, but that's like all going south. He's so creepy back there with his little glowy eyes. That little spooky boy. Stop being spooky back there. You're creeping me out. Don't look at me. Don't watch me when I'm telling ghost stories, you fuck. Oh god, that's creepy. Anyway, so yeah, it's a college. It's like the University of Channel Islands, but back when we were visiting it, like the university didn't take up that much space. and what is now the library was literally just like the medical like ward for this institution, of which the front, like inside towards the campus, like a hallway, all of those like offices and whatnot were now like faculty offices, but the rest of it, which wasn't really locked, outside areas were locked, but like interior doors leading into it were unlocked by and large, and there was definitely ways to get inside, depending on how dedicated you were to going in, but all of that was just unaltered, open institution. A basement, first, and second floors. But so we'd go there every once in a while. And that one was like interesting because that one, like, I had to like do a lot of like fucking rooting around in, because the thing was that there was lots of situations where there'd be rooms or areas that like were inaccessible to some of the other people in our group, like say Brandon or like Mike or somebody who was like bigger, and so they couldn't get into certain spots. And so when you come to a locked door, you'd need somebody to like, for example, sometimes you could just sneak in through the faculty like ward. You'd open up a door to the faculty rooms, and then you'd proceed to like go to the nearest hallway and then down and like just open up like double doors and go in. But if the faculty hallways were locked, it was suddenly just like, well, how do we get in? So I usually would do this thing where there was on the other side, there was a little courtyard which had a veranda or a series of verandas all around, like all around the building up on like the second floor. And so I would like have them move out a planter, climb up on that, and then grab hold of the veranda, pull myself up, and then try the doors on the veranda to let myself in. Which means that now all of a sudden I'm on the second floor of the asylum by myself, and I'd have to like make my way through the institute and then like down through the like stairs, whichever ones weren't locked, and then like out back to where they were at so I could open a door and let them in. Which means that there was like another time where I had to like, a door was closed but the like gap over the window was open, so I went up through that to let them through. I think another time, oh yeah, that one was hard because I had to go, there was one where it was like a vent, and I had to go up into the vent, through it, and then it let me down into a room which then had access to a spiral staircase that led straight down into the basement and opened up into this darkened hallway, which then I had to like go through the darkened hallway like over to another staircase in an area that it was more familiar. It was an elevator. Bring that up, go back around, and go and open up the door for my friend. So I basically just went through like the entire like sub basement, and that was like creepy in its own right. Just to get to these guys. Oh Lord, like some of those places were like super spooky. Because like for example, like there was, the elevators would still work. The first floor seemed relatively benign. The second floor was like, had like some stuff in it though, because up in the second floor, as you went towards the center of the building, there would be these like T intersections between like wards, and in the middle of that would be like nurses stations, and in the nurses stations area would be rooms that were like effectively padded cells, locked. You couldn't get into those, but the lights were still on in them, and so you'd like be able to like look in, and like all of like the glass and stuff was super scratched up and stuff all like scratched into like the glass and so on, which was super unnerving. I did not like that part. There was a section of the doorway that was locked, and we were always trying to like get into it because it said that that was like a different ward that was like surgery or something like that, and I kept trying to get in there until one day I put together a map in my head where I'm just like, wait a minute, if each of the wards interconnects down this like main corridor and each one has like a cross, that means that if we went down one, even two more wards, there would still be cross doors. And if either one of those was open, there's a possibility that the back hallway would, there he is again, being spooky back and behind me. Spooky boy. Anyway, so if you went down this hallway and like went like down one of the crosses and then like what could be in that room that he wants to get to? He always does that, actually. He's always trying to get in that room when the door is closed. He just wants to go and chew on the socks that are in there. Anyway, you go down, you'll be able to access it. And lo and behold, I was right. Like, we went down a side hallway, like, went to the next adjoining ward, went through its open doors, went to, like, a connecting hallway, and then basically came up to the locked area from behind the way that we were trying to get into. And that one was like, that was weird, because you get in and like everything's painted like this nasty green. Jojo, what you doing? Why do you want in there so bad? There's nothing in that room for you. There's nothing in that room, my boy. What if? Ugh. There we go. Jeez, Jojo, you've killed this. Oh, it's a boy. Oh, it's a boy. Yeah. But so, yeah, no, the surgical ward was just like super duper spooky, because it was, oh man, yeah. Oh wait, spooky lighting. But so there was the surgical theater, and over on the left-hand side, you could look into like these big windows that had like it was amazing, because it was like this dark, almost forest green, and then like a medical green. None of the rest of the hospital is like painted like this, mind you, just this one single area. And then like these dark wood, like really nice dark wood accents on everything, and like really fancy kind of like Edwardian era doors and stuff, like big. And it's glass looking into a surgical theater with full on like, there are seats on like, there are stadium seats all around, like the outside edge, all made of like really nice like wood, and like all looking down on this like operating table with like everything still intact, and like set up with like a tray next to it, because it's like no one's. What's bizarre to me is the fact that for as long as this place has been there and been closed, that somehow or another I was the first person that was like someone doing urban exploration that like bothered to be all like, oh wait, if we go in someplace besides this store, we'll be able to just get inside, because like nothing had been moved or tampered with. It was just sitting there. And then next to that, like, oh god, there was this like creepy sound the whole time. There's this constant like, this weird kind of like rushing sound, but it turned out that there was like a faucet that was on, just like in the like room between the like prep room and the theater, where you'd enter in and like bring the patient and you take them over to the operating room, and there's like another like room next to it. In between those two rooms, there was just like water just kind of like running into the sink, so turn that off. Oh boy, that place was creepy. Then, but see, that wasn't the least of the creepy ones. Like, there was an elevator that you could take, and that would take you down to the basement. And in the basement where the elevator would let out was this concrete hallway that literally just like was maybe about as wide as a car, and it just extended like down the length of the whole building and off into like darkness, like just pitch black, except on the left, the only lit room in that entire area was the morgue. And so you'd get off the elevator, you'd look to your left, and there's this kind of like concrete ramp hallway just leading down into like darkness, and a single lit like room. And the first time you go there, you're just like, oh, there's a light. Oh, kind of creepy, but okay, let's go over there. And then you like turn the corner and step in, and it's just like a wall of like all of the like slabs. Like St. John's had like, I think maybe 4, 8, 12, 16, I think, slabs for like their morgue. This one had maybe 3 times that many. which is absolutely crazy to me. It was a huge amount, and the whole place kind of smelled a little bit off. Jeez, you're just killing it. You're killing it, my boy. Yeah, you just go to town. But so that actually had, like, besides the morgue, you would go into another adjoining room that was like kind of like a little like prep room in and of itself, and there's like windows that like separate out so you could like see in, and then into the next room from that one. So there's like this prep room that had all these like shelves and like cabinets and things to store stuff, but the next room was another surgical theater, but this time an autopsy theater. So there is like this obliterated fucking like autopsy table in the middle of this room, and like just like stuff on the floor, and like the like sinks and showers around, and then in front of it was just like stadium seating, like all set up like for students to go and like observe autopsies. That place was creepy. I had to go in there every once in a while, like on my own, to like let people through in areas, and then like, creepy. And then if you went down the concrete hallway, eventually it was like an L shape, the basement was. You'd go down and it would like suddenly make a hard left, and there'd just be these rooms on the right that were like, one was a generator room, but there was like two big rooms that had beds and were just like set up almost like, you know, like hospital wards, but they were literally in a concrete basement, like concrete walls, concrete pillars, no windows, just beds in these big empty spaces. And gosh, that was creepy. Oh my gosh, that whole place was super duper creepy, but we never saw anything. And I remember like there's a girl who was in a play that I directed who, like, it turns out had like a crush on me, and so like I didn't know it at the time, and she was going out with a guy that I knew that was also in the cast, because she figured like, hey, like I wasn't available because she didn't think that would like her, and so, but this guy was, and so he was just like, hey, like you should go with Chris and I and go and check out this haunted like hospital, like it should be like super cool. And so I remember I just remember that time with her where it was just like she was terrified of the whole place, and she was just like, I remember there being one point where she froze, like she basically just panicked and completely froze in place, and like couldn't move, and like my friend was just like, come on, like get moving. I'm like, dude, she is like fucking like terrified, like you can't push her. And so I very gallantly picked her up and carried her through a significant portion of that hospital, which in retrospect I think was just her trying to, you know, like be like close. We went out after a fashion. She was like my first girlfriend, my first like proper girlfriend, and it did not like, that one didn't go well. But you know, that one moment was pretty sweet, and fucking JoJo just obliterated this fucking thing. But so yes, but so yeah, that hospital, like I still think about that basement and that morgue and that like surgical theater. Like there's like very few things in this world quite as spooky as like a fucking like surgical theater. Just like the idea of something as horrible as a surgery like taking place like in front of a live studio audience, like Christ. Anyway, so that is the two stories that I've got for this evening, today or whenever you happen to see this. But yeah, those are that's some more of my experience in the area. I guess there's another like mental hospital in like Ventura. The very first one was called the Bard Hospital, and it sits up above, like it's next to the city hall, and it's this like little, like a really lovely kind of Spanish revival like style like building. But apparently that place is supposed to be just nightmarishly bad, and like the basement's supposed to be just housing some sort of like foul energy that's like there's all sorts of the level of awfulness that's apparently associated with that hospital, and specifically the basement of that hospital, verges on Lovecraftian. Like people tell, like they don't even have specific stories, just this idea of this like absolute impossibly malevolent force in that basement of like this other like little tiny like building. I remember one night we wanted to try to get in. We could not find access to the basement, but in the empty parking lot of this place, there was like no one around. But then when we were leaving, we noticed up on the second floor at this travel agency, there was like a light on in that building. And as we looked up, we realized that there was like a figure illuminated in the light, like coming out, and that figure just kind of like paced back and forth and like hung out near the windows for like 4 hours, because we camped out this spot trying to like wait and like see if we could get in or like try to figure out like when the best time was. And then we noticed the figure and we're just like, who is that up there? Like there's no cars around, it's like midnight, what are they doing there? And so we just watched as this figure just moved around like back and forth in front of the windows like all night long, just over like a very select area of the windows, like not any further out. They weren't like going and cleaning stuff up, and they eventually they were just gone. They just weren't there anymore, and we're just like, well, I guess it's time to go home and get some sleep, or try to, because that was awful. And oh man, those places creeped me out. I'm glad JoJo's not hanging out by the fucking door back there spooking me. Fuck. Anyway, so that's this evening's stories. So hopefully these tales of absolute mind-bending horror have compelled you to consider the great beyond and the elementals and the spookables and the ghostly hibbity-jibbities. Anyway, until next time, fair listener,